Hey guys, it's Miss McClure. Today we are just kind of reviewing our understanding of integers, how to write integers. Remember, integers are whole numbers and their opposite. So given a situation, how to write it, how to graph them on number lines, and then ordering integers from least to greatest or greatest to least. We're also going to talk about absolute value today. The absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. There's really just one rule to remember. An absolute value can never be negative because distance is never negative. So we're going to do a real quick review of all of that, and then your assignment today is just a quick check. It's an integers practice. I believe there's 20 questions, so it's out of 100 points. So if you will do that, it is in the classroom, and then turn that in, and that will be your graded assignment for today. All right, so let's go ahead and look at what absolute value looks like. So here we go. Okay, absolute value, when it's ever gonna ask you about, hold on, I can't get the cap off my marker. Hold on, guys, sorry. When it asks you about absolute value is going to look a little weird. It's going to look like this. See those two vertical lines? That means the absolute value of negative 15. So it's not going to actually say the word absolute value. These symbols, these vertical lines represent absolute value. So this is asking, what is the absolute value of negative 15? So that's asking, how many spaces from 0 is negative 15 on a number line? Well, if we actually started at 0 and we jumped all the way to negative 15, we would have 15 spaces. Okay? We're counting distance from 0 on the number line. So distance can never be negative. So if you have a negative inside of your absolute value signs right here, it's just going to be the positive form of this number, 15. All right, let's do another one. If I was going to ask you the absolute value, so see our two vertical lines here, the absolute value of 2. Well, the distance away from 0 on a number line would be 2, right? And we can look, like if I have my number line right here and I have 0, 1, 2, 3. If I start at 0 and I hop to 2, I would make 2 hops. So that's the distance. Okay, even if I was going over here to negative 1, I'm starting at 0 and I'm counting my hops. 1 hop. That's a 1, a positive 1. So again, you cannot have a negative absolute value. So if you have a negative in here, it's just going to be the positive form of this number. Now, there is a trick, because you might see something like this. See where the negative's on the outside instead of on the inside right here? This is saying the absolute value of 12, because that's what's, the 12 is inside of the absolute value sign. The absolute value of 12 is 12, but that's the opposite of that. So when we have our negative on the outside, it is a negative. That's the only time we're going to have absolute value in a negative, is the negatives on the outside here. If it's on the inside, it's always going to be the positive form. Okay, but if it's on the outside, it will be a negative. That's a negative 12. Okay, so that's absolute value. If you have any questions, please email me. Absolute value is distance from 0 on a number line. Distance is always positive, but remember, if you have that negative on the outside of the absolute value sign, then you can have a negative answer. All right, let's go ahead and review how to order integers from least to greatest. So let's say I have the numbers -10, 0, -12, and -9. So again, on my number line right here, I'm just going to put -10, -9, -8, -7. Okay, and the further I go to the right, I get to 0. The further I go to the left, which would -12 would be out here somewhere, the smaller my numbers are getting. The further I'm going to the right, the larger my numbers are getting. So I'm going from least to greatest. So the first number I would have on the left over here would be my -12, and then -10, -9, and then 0. So from least to greatest. Okay. What if, let's review how to, because you're going to have on your Google form today, you're going to have questions where it will give you a number line. Hold on. It's going to give you a number line. And then it will have like points and letters above it, and it might ask you what point is located at -4 on the number line. So you would just find -4 on your number line and you would put A, because that A is at -4 on the number line. Okay. You will also be asked to compare your integers. Now, comparing is where we're using the less than, greater than, or equal sign. So it might have like -3 and -1. So you're going to be given two numbers, and you have to be able to tell me what sign. Is it a less than sign, a greater than sign, or an equal to sign that goes in between these two numbers? Again, if you need to draw a number line on your paper to answer these, please do that. But you can see that -3 is furthest to the left, -1 is closer to the right. So -3 is less than -1. Remember, the alligator always eats the larger number, and the larger number is always to the right on the number line. Let's do another one. Oh, let's do one. You might see some with absolute value signs. So remember, absolute value signs look like this. They're two vertical lines. So this is the absolute value of -2 and the absolute value of -5. Now, before we put a sign in here, we actually have to find out what is the absolute value of -2 and what is the absolute value of -5. Well, we know that absolute value is a positive form of whatever's inside our absolute value sign. So this is 2. And the absolute value of -5 is 5, because absolute value can never be negative. So now we can put our less than sign. Okay? All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Again, if you have any questions about those absolute value, I know that the symbol is a little bit new, but just remember, absolute value can never be negative. The only time you're going to get a negative answer is when the negative sign is outside of the absolute value signs. So I miss you guys. Love you. Stay safe. Email me if you have any questions.